Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be working in my big sketchbook and I'm going to be showing a little bit of my sketchbook practice, and I'm going to be working on a preliminary drawing for one of my larger paintings. I'm also going to talk about what inspires me to paint. So I'm so glad that you could be here to join me. Thanks for coming. Okay. So here's a study that I started. I probably started this about 3 years ago. I completely forgot about this painting until I picked this sketchbook back up and started working in it recently. And I always liked it. I did it at a very difficult time right after a really close family member passed, and I had a really bad artistic block, and which I never really have. And so I was really pushing myself to try to make art because I wasn't able to. And this is one of the first paintings I made in my sketchbook after or during that period, and I really did forget about it. But I always kind of really liked it, and I really did honestly forget about it. And then I've been doing this series of abstract floral paintings, and then I only had 3, but I wanted to do 4, and then I kind of just came across this within the last week or 2. So it's kind of in a really odd format because it's oblong and because of the format of this particular sketchbook. So I did another one in my big sketchbook, which I'll show you, and then I redrew it again because I'm not really happy with the shape of the pot. I'm going to show you the one that I redid. Let me see what's in here. These are 2 of the ones that I'm also doing in this series. So this one is already started on a canvas. This one I've done to death in books, etc., and is prepped to go on a canvas. And then let me see. Okay, so here's the second one. And when I first did this one, it had a pink pot as well. And I thought it wasn't really working with the pink pot. So I thought, and I actually changed out some of the background, but I really like the abstract background. And I made this more into like a table shape. But then when I put the turquoise or this kind of blue-green color here, I kind of really liked it a lot better. I got rid of this jazz up here, which I didn't think was working. And I changed a few things up. But anyway, I still don't like the shape of this pot, but I do like that color. I was looking at it today and thinking, oh, I really kind of like that dark blue there. But things could still change. Things I really like about this is I do like the layering and the freshness. Now, I've been doing a lot of abstracts in between, so that's what keeps me loose and very fresh. These books I use a lot for warm-ups, so I have things like this where that's a bird warm-up, and then, you know, I have my other things in here that I'm always working on. But here is a sketch. I'm not sure if you could see. Now, I've changed the shape of the pot again, and I'm going to try this. I do like the shape of this pot again better. It's kind of rounder on top with a thinner neck, but I like the configurations of the flowers. So I am going to go ahead and do this one. And yeah, I'm going to have you kind of hang out with me while I paint this and see what you think. Okay. So meet me in a minute. I'll have everything set up to paint. What I'm going to do first is put in some of my underpainting, and I have some of my pinks here, and a lot of this had pink underpainting on it. So I am going to, even though this pot is going to be turquoise, I am going to do pink underpainting on it because the last one had the pink underpainting, and I love the way it still came through after I added the other color to it. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that. I do paint in layers, whether I'm painting on wood or canvas or paper. And I even do it in my sketchbooks because I really like the effect of having those colors come through the other layers. I think of everything as a layer when I'm painting. And that's why sometimes I like starting with a layer of color already painted onto the page or the canvas. I'll tone a lot of times. I have a tone, I start with a toned canvas rather than just a white canvas. I always tone my canvas a color and not just a neutral color. I prefer a color underneath. It also, if you have that fear of the white page, it gets you right over that because it's already a color. And then if there's little pinholes or spots you miss, sometimes those places are places where that color will pop through, and you get just a little bit of that background comes through, and it's really interesting in your painting. It will interact with the color that goes on top of it, and it really gives you an interesting effect. So here I'm going to put a little bit of this pink background in certain parts of this because it already has the yellow here, so I'm not too worried about putting this background over everything. But there's a couple of places here where I do want a pink background. So I'm going to add those places right now. And right now I'm putting, this is the baby times right here, baby layers. So I'm not worried too much about being too neat or any of that stuff. I'm just popping in some color. And I've always been obsessed with color and color interactions, and that is something very early on I decided that I was going to bring into my paintings. And color theory is something that I decided that I really wanted to learn very, very early on, and I just really love color and how it interacts with color, and I use a lot of color in my paintings because I just really love it so much. So yeah, sometimes my colors are really bright, and non-local color is something that I use a lot in my paintings. I am not afraid to use color. So even though I'm very inspired by nature, and I spend a lot of time outdoors, and I bring a lot of foliage and flowers and trees and just plant life and things into my paintings, I also like to be super loose and very casual about the way I interpret them and interpret the colors. I may change them up or make them very abstract. I make my backgrounds abstract a lot of times, and I definitely change the colors up and try to loosen myself up as much as possible. Although I do sketch a lot in nature, and I do live on a very rural property, So I do take a lot of walks and draw in nature and sketch in nature. I do a lot of watercoloring in nature. And nature definitely influences my work. I find it's probably one of my very biggest influences. I'm always fighting being too tight in my work, so I think I go the other way when I'm sketching in my sketchbooks. And one of the ways I stay loose is by switching between abstracts and doing a lot, mono printing in the abstracts. The mono printing process is one where you have to completely let go of the end result. You can't have very precise results with mono printing, so you have to kind of give up part of the end result to the process itself. And so you definitely have to give up a lot of control, which is really hard for some artists to do. But what I love about that is that it allows me to become more free and more loose. And it's really taught me to give up a lot of control. I also very often, when I'm sketching and drawing and painting, I will switch off hands and use my non-dominant hand. I am ambidextrous, but I am right dominant, but I will very often, in my warm-ups and in my sketching and early parts of the painting, I will paint with my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand, because I believe that that's your intuitive hand is your non-dominant hand, and it will really help free you up if you feel like you're too tight. That's another thing that I like to do. And my sketchbook is a place where I feel like I can do all these things and just really let myself play. Sketchbook for me is a place where I can experiment and try out different things. I can make mistakes here. I don't have to worry about feeling judged here. I have painting students, and I always tell them that they never have to show their sketchbooks to anyone. They can just, it's almost like a diary. You can keep it for yourself, and you can make all the mistakes you want. It's a record of how far you've come. But it's also a place to work out ideas and generate ideas. And I have so many. I have ones in the house that are smaller, where I'm just like kind of thinking of things, and then those ideas may come out into the studio, and I might work some more of those ideas out here in paint. And in the house I may have colored pencils or Neocolor crayon, and I might try all of these different things out in the studio and add gouache or other things to the mix. And sketchbooks are really a great tool just to find your way. Another one of my huge influences is just working and looking at the art of the masters. And I've been very, very lucky in that I've been able to be a teaching artist in some really great nonprofits and museums. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with some really nice exhibits with some of my favorite artists and teach directly from the art of great masters. And I think that if you're able to see good exhibits and master artists that you love, there's no better way to learn than to, work from the art of great masters. And even if you just have access to their paintings online, you can learn so much from the masters about composition and color and just so much, I mean, that they can teach us about mark making and just how they compose their paintings and the subject matter and just their color choices and so many different things about what they had to say and how they said it. I find their work fascinating. You'll see me pulling back through the paint when I'm layering up. And that's so that you can see the underlayer. I always think of everything as a layer when I'm painting. So a lot of times when I'm putting color over color, I will pull back with the back of my brush or a tool to scratch through. And in this case, I'm using a complementary color. So I'm using pink and green, which are complementary colors. And I want a little of that pink to show through so it can vibrate against the green, which complementary colors will do. Now, I would never add them on top of each other if they were wet, because then they would create a neutral color. But if you let them completely dry, you can do this with a really cool result. And so that's what I've done here. Now, again, I'm putting a little green over the pink, but the pink is bone dry. If I put that green over the pink when it was wet, I would have mud, or I would have a neutral, which is not what I want. But you can safely add complementary colors over each other when they're bone dry, and you won't have any problems at all. But putting them next to each other like that is really always fun to do, because they'll vibrate against each other and be really cool and interesting. Here I am trying out that blue color, because I kind of thought I would maybe want to try it, but I don't think I ended up liking it, and I painted over it again. So like I said, you really have nothing to lose if you decide that you don't like something that you've done in your sketchbook. So, I put this color down. I didn't like it. And you'll see that I'm going to change it. I think I changed it twice because I didn't like it. And actually, when I finished this yesterday or the other day, I came back and I changed a couple more things. And, it's just a work in progress. And a lot of times, I mean, this is actually the third one, if you think about it, because I had already painted one I didn't like, and then I kind of left it for, a couple of years because I had forgotten about it. Then I did the second one few days ago. Then I was like, oh, well, I like a lot of things about that, but I don't like the shape of the pot. We need to change things up. And so I did, so that's what I mean about the sketchbook being a place to experiment and change things, and just, never be afraid to come back in and mix things up and change things around, or grab a piece of, I have some really nice Fabriano watercolor paper that's a little bigger than this sketchbook that I also do a lot of work in, and I'll paint acrylic paint right on top of that. I don't even gesso it. It's really great. It's 140 pound. I do acrylic paintings on that all the time, and I've actually sold a few of those because it's just really nice paper, and it holds acrylic very well. I mean, you could do a watercolor on it too, but it's just a really nice weight for acrylic painting, or, you know, it'll take mixed media, it'll take collage really well. And, you know, all of these preliminary paintings, it's almost like if I've done several of one idea, then when I go to paint it on canvas, it's already like an old friend. It almost paints itself. By the time I get to painting it on the canvas, it's like I know the subject so well. I feel like artists like Edvard Munch have given me permission to make 1,000 versions of something. I mean, I've loved him for so long, and he's an artist that I love because he does like so many versions of each idea. So very early on, I was never afraid to do multiple versions of one thing and really work ideas out. So I've gotten to see so much of his work in the past year live. So you can just see like how many versions he does of every single one of his paintings. And, you know, there's got to be like, I don't know, probably 10 versions of the Scream, and I've seen like 3 or 4 of them this past year, just because he just works an idea to death. And I mean, sometimes I feel like I do the same thing, but I don't. I think it's just part of the process for some people. I don't really feel like I've fully visited an idea until I've done multiple versions of something. I don't get it out of my system until I've really, really worked something over and worked all the kinks out of it, or until I've figured it all out in my head and, I'm sick of it. By the time I'm done with a painting, I'm done with a painting. I can't wait to sell it or get it out of my studio so I don't have to look at it anymore. That's how I know I'm done with it. So I pretty much got to the end of this painting session, and then left it to dry overnight, and I came back and I changed a few things the next day when I came into the studio. A lot of times I need fresh eyes the next day. I made a few tweaks. I still see some things that I'd like to fix when I bring it to canvas, but I don't really think I need to. I don't think I really need to make another study at this point. I think it's getting close. I did change a little bit of the background. I added a couple little tiny details, but I think I'm pretty close to where I want it to be for when I bring this to a bigger canvas. I probably will do maybe a 16 by 20 or a 20 by 20, something like that. And this is where I left it the following morning. Thanks so much for joining me for my video. And if you could, please like, share, and subscribe, because it really helps me grow my channel, and I really do appreciate it so much. Thanks for coming.